lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices.
Why don't you stay?
Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them.
Shalom family, this is the Truth Ryder Hyperspeed Report, and in this series we want to quickly cover breaking information as well as recap and review news that confirms our previous research.
And whoa, the enemy is really on the move. Just as we are receiving confirmation confirming our breakdown of the last slew of psyops and orchestrated events, a new storm of spiritual wickedness in high places is forming.
We are witnessing high drama play out on the world stage. Some masterfully crafted political theater is mesmerizing and captivating the masses. With Oscar-worthy performances by vision-impaired Secret Service agents, deranged lone gunmen, and persuasive propaganda-pushing political pundits.
But it's important to note that just because there may be a false flag, an inside job that is part of a greater conspiracy, does not mean that every individual that is involved in the event is aware of the plot.
And here's a fact that few understand. Not all engineered events are orchestrated by men. When you begin to see a number of seemingly unlikely coincidences start to pile up, going against natural odds and probability, like bullets whizzing past the head just to nick the tip of the ear, there's likely a strong spiritual force guiding the course of events.
For instance, take the new footage that just leaked of the Bohemian Grove ritual ceremony, which took place July 13th, the same day as the Trump assassination attempt.
Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird.
Revelation 18:2 describes the state of Mystery Babylon after her fall as a habitation of devils and the hold of every foul spirit and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. I believe Babylon has not completely fallen yet. Therefore, the unclean and hateful birds have not been caged and are out and on the loose, one of them being the Owl of Bohemian Grove.
These occult practitioners officiating this ritual using ceremonial magic are not in control of the end result. They are relying on spirits they have summoned to influence events and circumstances in order to manifest their desired outcome. But what ultimately comes to pass may or may not be exactly what the spellcasters expect.
We know that the Most High Abba Yahuwah is ultimately in control. We also know that the earth has been given into the hands of the wicked. Job 9:24.
Napoleon, Alexander the Great, Donald Trump, we're all cut from the same cloth.
We've got blood on the campaign trail. Blue blood sprinkled on a campaign trail. A trail that has left behind a multitude of breadcrumbs, calling cards leading back to some of the most diabolical spiritual forces which have all seemingly assembled together for this end times false messiah deception.
You see, this series of unlikely events have all converged to catapult Donald Trump beyond the mere White House, right into the hearts of patriotic Americans as a Messiah-like figure.
The spellcasters and the entities they serve have decided to play the ultimate trump card.
This Enough is Enough card from the 1994-95 Illuminati card game is one of many that seemingly predict future events. Everything from 9/11, the Pentagon attacks, the pandemic, to this recent Trump assassination attempt.
If you look closely at the central figure, which eerily resembles Trump, it's framed by two triangles, one pointing up, the other pointing down, as above so below. But in between leaves a space resembling the trace of a speeding bullet whizzing by, right around ear level.
But a bright line in the sand, and we will protect you, that I can tell you, and we will say enough is enough.
This will finally be the year the American people say enough is enough. Enough is enough.
This is the year the American people say enough is enough.
And they tried to kill the next president of the United States. Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again.
This 30-year-old Enough is Enough card states, at any time, at any place, our snipers can drop you. Have a nice day. Yes, these cards are a medium for predictive programming, telegraphing the occult brotherhood's future plans. But they are also a form of divination, similar to tarot cards and other tools used by occultists who wish to peer through time and influence future events.
Let's look at July 13th and decode some of the esoteric symbolism of the day.
This particular BlackRock commercial, that's exactly what this is. BlackRock went to Pennsylvania and they filmed this commercial, and it just so happens that Thomas Matthew Crooks is in their commercial.
Police have already been alerted that there's a man climbing with a rifle on top of the roof. So 42 seconds before the president is shot, you can see the Secret Service sniper team prone position looking through their scopes in the direction of the shooter. Then about 6 minutes later, 42 seconds before the president is shot, they are now in a prone position using their scopes, taking aim at this individual across 150 yards from where the president is speaking. They see him clearly, they know that he has a long rifle, and they do not fire upon him. Why did they not take the shot? 42 seconds later, shots rang out and President Trump is hit. Why did they allow him to get off a shot? They see him on this roof. Why did they stand down? Why did they not do anything? Again, gross incompetence or an inside job?
This 42 seconds, spiritually, is very significant.
His parents have worked as professional counselors, according to public records.
Both of Thomas Crook's parents were social workers, a form of psychologist. MKUltra was created by psychologists.
These funds have been earmarked for military spending.
The victim was in earshot of the assailant.
Spiritually, a wounded right ear is significant. Trump's right ear was pierced by a bullet, and the last time the mainstream media highlighted a wounded ear is when Tyson bit off Holyfield's right ear.
Oh my goodness, he's got a bloody right ear. Holyfield bit by a dirty Mike Tyson,
which has cannibalistic overtones. In the Bible, Leviticus 8:23, Moses put ram's blood on the right ear of Aaron the priest, and in John 18:10, Peter cut off the right ear of the high priest's servant. Given the nature of this assassination attempt being such a close call, it is not surprising that many who identify themselves as patriotic Christians are claiming that this is an act of God.
If you didn't believe in miracles before Saturday, you better be believing right now. Thank God.
Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices.
And our God still saves, he still delivers, and he still sets free. Because on Saturday, the devil came to Pennsylvania.
The devil came to Pennsylvania. Well, the devil is a deceiver, so yes, the deceiver was very active in Pennsylvania that day.
Thank God!
You must understand that God is a generic title, not a name. In the Bible, Satan is even referred to as a god, the god of this world. On the back of the dollar bill, it says, "In God we trust," right next to the phrase Novus Order Seclorum, meaning New Order of the Ages, or New World Order.
This is underneath the Great Pyramid with the illuminated eye of Horus. Horus is another hateful and unclean bird which has not yet been caged. So it is fitting that they would have Tim Scott deliver this speech tying God and divine intervention to Trump and the Republican Party right in front of the pyramid in the eye of Horus.
The hold of every foul spirit and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird.
Those of you who really follow our work know that we have been tracking and exposing the works of this coalition of spirits for a while now.
Just a few weeks ago, we highlighted Donald Trump's bizarre Hannibal Lecter reference at his campaign rally, tying his praise and admiration for Hannibal Lecter to the third installment of the Silence of the Lambs series titled The Red Dragon. This invocation was quickly added onto and reinforced by the self-proclaimed witch Ariana Grande.
You are a witch?
I am, indeed. The witchiest witch.
Ariana has inadvertently expressed her praise and admiration for this cannibalistic spirit by stating that Jeffrey Dahmer would be her dream dinner guest.
Years ago, before the Dahmer series, it was in a Q&A with fans, with young fans. It was young fans at the time. It was I think it was in between like me being Cat and pop stuff. So it was like a younger group. Okay. But it was with a parent. Someone said, "If you could have dinner with anyone living or dead, who would it be?" And I was like, "Oh, you're so cute. Who, Mom and Dad, is it okay if I give the real answer?" And they were like, "Sure, I guess. What's the answer?" And I was like, I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer's pretty fascinating. I think I would have loved to have met him. Wow. Like, maybe with a third party or something involved, but I have questions.
There is clearly an occult agenda behind this line of questioning. Some of you may remember when they asked the cannibalistic actor, Armie Hammer, the same question.
Furthermore, he made a mysterious statement during an interview with Netflix Brazil. The interviewer asked Armie to name an ideal dinner guest, to which Armie responded, Marquis de Sade. For those who are unfamiliar, the Marquis de Sade was a philosopher known for his views on sexuality. The term sadism is derived from his name, as he was known to practice sexual activities where one person gains enjoyment from inflicting pain on another.
In 1785, Marquis de Sade wrote a novel called 120 Days of Sodom.
120 Days of Sodom is not only filled with themes of bondage and sadism, but graphic themes of cannibalism.
In the so-called Chinese Year of the Dragon, their dragon invocations are reaching a fevered pitch.
Take a look at the 270-foot dragon wrapped around one of the country's most iconic skyscrapers, the Empire State Building right here in New York City. So what is it doing there? Actually, it's all part of the new season of HBO's Game of Thrones prequel, House of the Dragon.
Our research has led us to believe that it is this hungry class of sea serpent and dragon spirits that are being called upon by the Hermetic Druids in the tradition of Merlin, a tradition which Donald Trump has many spiritual ties to.
Donald Trump has played so far. He's a billionaire businessman and property mogul.
A front-runner in the race to be the next US president.
Many admire him for his straight talking.
And now he's apparently been made a Knight of the Round Table in Tintagel and can call himself Sir. Heidi Davey reports.
Well, as the legend goes here in Tintagel, only the best knights in King Arthur's kingdom are invited to sit at the prestigious Round Table. It's an honour bestowed on only a few, and Donald Trump has now been added to that list. The question is, though, why?
So from henceforth, Donald Trump will be known at Camelot Castle as Sir Donald Trump of Camelot.
He's really not joking, by the way, as the process for selection is extremely serious here in North Cornwall.
We do it very, very rarely, and we do it. It is a great honour because the Noble Order of Camelot Castle is something that we do take very, very seriously. We have granted knighthoods previously. Some of them obviously are private for obvious reasons. I think he is one of the most noble men today in the world, and I think what he is doing is something that will go down in history, and I think King Arthur would be proud.
It is still related to the Welsh nation and its heritage, and that I think is the key. Arthur is part of our heritage.
There is so much evidence for placing him in southeast Wales. It really is amazing that this idea hasn't been accepted.
Well, I've never had any doubts that Arthur was a Welshman.
And he appears fundamentally in the core of the lineage literature of royalty. Our Arthur now becomes the source by which the kings of England claim their right to rule.
During the reign of Uther Pendragon, in the wake of the dragon-shaped star, Merlin foretold the coming of Arthur, a great warrior king who would defend his country and faith from foreign invaders and natural disasters. From the old Roman order that had withered and died, Arthur would sow the seeds of a nation that was to become Great Britain. Today, Arthur's name lives on, but did he ever really exist? Alan Wilson and Baron Blackett have gone further than any other researchers in establishing the facts behind the legend. Since 1977, they have been re-evaluating the most ancient British texts. Not only have they identified two Arthurs, but they've also found physical evidence to support their claims. The book that really brought Arthur to the attention of the world was The History of the Kings of Britain, written in 1135 by Geoffrey of Monmouth. Arthur's name had been recorded before, but it was this work that portrayed him as a knightly king.
The problem immediately was that he proclaimed an Arthur who fought the Romans and an Arthur who fought and defeated the Saxons and others. The immediate problem is that you have a 200 and maybe 25 or 250-year-old king. This was pointed out by Polydore Virgil, the historian for Henry VIII of the Six Wives, and said this is impossible that you've got a 250-year-old king here. He can't fight the Romans and the Saxons. This was immediately used to say, oh, this history is false. But the obvious answer is that there are two King Arthurs. And there are two. And the man who fought the Romans did so in 383 to 88, and is very clearly recorded, and very well recorded, authenticated. And the man who fought the Saxons in the 6th century is a 6th generation direct descendant in the male line, and he is Arthur II.
See, all of these legends come from real places.
When Edward I claimed the throne of Scotland, among other documents which his learned clerks consulted was the prophecy of Merlin and Geoffrey of Monmouth's history.
Here is an example of Geoffrey's portentous-sounding prophecies. A giant, snow-white in colour and gleaming bright, will beget a people which is radiant. Merlin's first appearance at the time of Vortigern, a chieftain in the days after the Romans left. As a usurping leader of the Britons, Vortigern had made the fatal mistake of inviting Saxon mercenaries into the country as auxiliary troops against an alliance of enemies from the north. Predictably, the Saxons didn't just do the job they had been hired for. They stayed on and settled more and more of their people on the lands they had been paid to defend. Finally, Vortigern lost control of them as they went on a rampage, massacring the British and despoiling the country. So, Vortigern himself had to flee to the safety of the mountains of northwest Wales. His magicians advised him to build a strong fortress, but the wall was no sooner built than it collapsed each night. In the face of this bad omen, the magicians prescribed the blood of a boy without a father to be sprinkled on the foundation stones. In nearby Carmarthen, they found the young Merlin, whose mother was the daughter of the king of the Welsh kingdom of Dyfed. She had been impregnated by an incubus demon while living with the nuns at a local convent. So, Merlin had no earthly father, which qualified him for the role of sacrificial victim. The strange circumstances of his conception meant that he was also a wonder child, product of a union between the earthly and the supernatural, and his powers were soon demonstrated before Vortigern. Merlin demonstrated the shortcomings of the local magicians by correctly identifying the true reason for the collapsing walls, an underground pool in which lay 2 dragons, one red, the other white, sealed in stone. Once the pool was drained, the dragons fought, and, as they struggled for supremacy, a spirit of prophecy took hold of Merlin. Under its influence, he uttered many strange sayings. These were the Prophetiae Merlini that Geoffrey had put in his first book. Merlin explained the red dragon symbolized the Britons, and the white one was their enemy, the Saxons. The white dragon would prevail for a while, but ultimately the red dragon would throw it back across the sea it came from. He foresaw the rise of a leader who would hold back the invaders for a time, meaning Arthur, not yet born at that point. And lastly, after many cryptic predictions, he warned Vortigern that the rightful princes, Aurelius and Uther, exiled offspring of the last Roman ruler, Constantine, were returning to claim back the kingdom and his life. This act of violence is commemorated at Dinas Emrys, or the Ambrosius Fort near Bed Gelert in North Wales. After establishing his credentials, Merlin helped the new king Aurelius to put up a fitting memorial over the mass grave of the murdered British leaders. For this, he travelled to Ireland, where there stood a huge circle of standing stones raised by giants. Using secret arts, Merlin dismantled the circle and had the stones shipped to Britain. Merlin went on to interpret the appearance of a comet in the form of a fiery dragon as heralding the death of Aurelius, the ascendancy of Uther, and the coming of King Arthur. He then played his well-known leading part in bringing about Arthur's conception by helping Uther Pendragon to deceive the wife of the Duke of Cornwall into sleeping with him at the fortress of Tintagel.
The Duke of Cornwall is away fighting Uther's forces somewhere else in Cornwall, and Uther is changed by Merlin magically into the shape of Gorlois, the Duke of Cornwall. Creek gets into Tintagel and lies one night with the Duchess and then goes away. So she never knows that it wasn't her own husband, and that night was conceived the infant Arthur. There's no question in my mind but that this reflects the theme found over and over again in ancient Celtic mythology, whereby a king is believed to be the son of a god, or the god, Lugh, who sleeps with the queen on the night that the new king is conceived. And this was a matter of pride, that kings were each the son of the god.
Recently, it was, I don't remember how many days ago it was, but Donald Trump was knighted, what's called the Knights of the Round Table in England. And only few people ever received this quote-unquote honor. But what I found was interesting is when I looked at the emblem, this secret society or this group of individuals that are brought to this round table. And this emblem is a picture of a cross with a round table with a red dragon. Now, what does the scripture say about the red dragon, people? The emblem of the knights of the round table, worn round the necks of all the knights, was given to them by King Arthur as part of the ceremony of their being made a knight. The red dragon of King Arthur represented their alliance to the king. The round table was illustrative of the eternity of God, the equality, unity, and comradeship of the order, and singleness of purpose of all the knights. Now, it says here that the red dragon represents the alliance to the king. Well, who's the king?
The would-be assassin, the patsy, Thomas Crooks, reeks of MK-Ultra mind control. Discernment is telling me there's a compartmentalized mid-tier branch of the deep state that wants to silence or eliminate Trump. But there is also an upper-level faction of the shadow government that wants to see the Lolita Express flying Operation Warp Speed pushing 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, re-elected.
Trump, much like Jeffrey Epstein, Peter Nygaard, and the homo carnivorous actor, Armie Hammer, has found a haven of unrestrained access to the forbidden, far from the scrutiny of the law, deep in the tropical paradise of the Caribbean islands.
Grand Cayman has been a sanctuary for me. I moved here with my husband 3 years ago, but things have changed since then.
Hammer and Chambers announced their split.
Armie Hammer just broke his silence. Even in paradise, it's hard to know who you can trust. The Cayman curse is when a couple moves to the island together and then ends up separating or breaking up or divorcing. And it drags.
Hammer and Chambers announced their split last year after 10 years of marriage.
I went through a very public divorce that was riddled with scandal, and stories are coming out each day and horrific articles, and I was learning about them as it happened.
This island is a playground for the rich and famous.
So what makes Grand Cayman paradise? Everything on the menu.
I was a Victoria's Secret angel.
It's a small island. So much temptation.
The girl that Tyson cheated on Chelsea with is pregnant.
This is Cayman. This is not a place to make enemies.
Epstein Island was part of a genetic breeding program, and it was just a hop, skip, and a jump away from Peter Nygaard's island, Nygaard Key, which was a genetic harvesting operation, and they both are just a stone's throw from Richard Branson's island, Branson being the owner of a stem cell cloning company.
In the midst of all this lived the human flesh craving, young boy grooming, call me by your name actor, Armie Hammer, in the midst of the Cayman Islands.
Donald Trump owns a sprawling beachfront estate in St. Martin's.
You see, this is a spirit.
When someone is playing the 1994 Illuminati card game, each player must choose to play as one of the 8 classes of Illuminati Brotherhoods. There is a class named the Adepts of Hermes, another class is called the Servants of Cthulhu, and lastly, we want to highlight a mysterious class called the Bermuda Triangle.
As we move forward, it will become clear to those with spiritual discernment that these are the cards being played.
Donald Trump's vice presidential pick, J.D. Vance, isn't just a friend of some of corporate America's worst billionaires. He is their creation. Former PayPal CEO Peter Thiel enabled J.D. Vance's entire career.
In 2017, Thiel donated more than $15 million to Vance's Senate campaign, personally escorting Vance to Mar-a-Lago to solidify his political puppet's relationship with Donald Trump as his new apprentice.
A U.S. drug company sponsored by J.D. Vance's backer, Peter Thiel, secretly conducted human trials for a herpes vaccine on the Caribbean island of St. Kitts. Thiel, the co-founder of PayPal, is one of several big-name investors who have backed the offshore testing of the experimental herpes inoculation by the company Rational Vaccines, the Daily Beast reported. The trials reportedly were performed in St. Kitts from April to August 2016 without approval of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
You see, the caduceus, because these are the adepts of Hermes, working in the Bermuda Triangle to serve the insatiable appetite of Cthulhu. This hungry marine kingdom spirit of bondage is building a stronghold in the Caribbean.
Like Ghislaine Maxwell with her Terramar project, Peter Thiel is big on the idea of seasteading, taking advantage of the fact that there is no legal jurisdiction in international waters, no government oversights, so Trump is still keeping his Epstein connections close.
Which leads us right to the Illuminati's most coveted card, the Immortality Serum.
Unfortunately, because of YouTube's policy and guidelines, we are not going to be able to expose much of this particular part of the conspiracy due to the nature of the information which is prohibited on this platform. We are currently working on a classic Shatter Paradise style video exposing the truth about these critical events. This presentation will be exclusively available on our Patreon and websites.
The roles have been cast for this false messiah programming and now are being played out through a number of social engineering theater rehearsals. The most prominent of them being the psychological conditioning aimed at the Israelites.
For months now, we have been witnessing the occult-infused rap feud that has totally enthralled the world, a battle between Kendrick Lamar and Drake.
This was a spiritual diversion, where the rapper Drake personifies not only the dragon, with the etymology of his name Drake being derived from the dreaded flying serpent, but his label OVO, represented by the bird that rules the night, the mystical bohemian fowl of the dark, the owl.
On the flip side, Kendrick Lamar's diss tracks toward Drake have been harnessed by the Democratic Party and used as weapons against Trump. This is from Biden's official campaign site.
The Biden and Harris campaign posted a video slideshow of unflattering photos of Trump while a verse from Kendrick Lamar's diss song Euphoria plays in the background. Quote, "It's always been about love and hate. Now let me say I'm the biggest hater. I hate the way that you walk, the way that you talk. I hate the way that you dress. I hate the way that you sneak diss."
Now with the rise of Kamala Harris, this video clip takes on new significance as she aims to divide and conquer, referencing Kendrick Lamar's hit diss record, Not Like Us, redirecting its potent spiritual energy toward her political opponents.
So what's on your mind? Oh, Madam VP Harris, I'm worried about the election. Women's reproductive rights are on the line. Our Supreme Court is on the line. Our basic freedoms are being tested, Madam VP. I know you've been traveling across the country. What are you hearing?
Yeah, girl, I'm out here in these streets. And let me tell you, you're right, Taraji. There is so much at stake in this moment. The majority of us believe in freedom and equality. But these extremists, as they say, they're not like us.
They not.
There's a full-on attack on our fundamental freedoms.
Kendrick is being cast as the Messiah figure, who slayed the dragon Drake and caged OVO, the unclean and hateful bird.
Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird.
The last time we set out to expose this particular class of spirits, we received powerful testimonies from viewers who were edified and made more aware of Satan's devices.
Chains were broken and folks started on the road to being set free. However, these great victories did not come without a cost. Not only was the video deleted from YouTube, but we suffered increased censorship and spiritual attacks that we had to fight off for months.
So you can imagine how we felt the last few weeks when all the news reports, articles, and information we were gathering seemed to converge and point to the exact same spirits we confronted just 3 short years ago.
Here we go again.
We were being led to create part 3 to one of the most spiritually dangerous series we have ever produced. Despite all the enemy's efforts to discourage and stop us, I knew I had to blow the trumpet and shine the light on this swarm. This demon's nest, just one more time.
One more time. We're gonna stay here. We're not running. We're gonna stand our ground. But we can't do it without your prayers, encouragement, and support. We need you.
One more time. We're gonna stay here. We need you.
This is the last installment in this series. Pray for us.
We need you, Abba Yah. Help us close this chapter.
They cannot intrude here.
In the midst of increasing global tensions, the drums of war are sounding. Alliances are being forged, and battle lines are being drawn across land and water.
Tensions are rising in one of the most hotly contested regions on the planet, the South China Sea.
China's President Xi Jinping compared the BRICS economic bloc to a giant ship sailing forward against raging torrents and storms.
We are witnessing the world reserve currency being systematically devalued and undermined, while banking institutions play big fish eat little fish. This is the geopolitical backdrop surrounding the highly significant coronation and crowning of the new British monarch, who is charged to preside over an economic, social, biological, and spiritual Great Reset.
Question: did any creatures, entities, or beings outside of Noah's Ark survive the Great Flood?
There's something in the water.
So is this great and wide sea, wherein are things creeping, innumerable, both small and great beasts. There go the ships. There is that Leviathan, whom thou hast made to play therein. These wait all upon thee, that thou mayest give them their meat in due season.
There's something in the water.
Suspicious ship movements before the blast.
I see it taking over.
These were so-called ghost ships.
The kingdoms of the world. It's tentacles are around their neck, is choking mankind.
The Marine Kingdom.